I started like just yelling, just like, yeah, like, fuck yeah, just like yelling in my car. And then I was like, shut up, you gotta listen. He's like, we're casting you in the role as the lead in this movie. These are when rehearsals start, blah, 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 blah. And I just started just bawling, right? Just like crying in the car, screaming, yelling, just feeling like this is so incredible. I finally got a lead role in a movie, a feature, it's paying me. And it's like this whole thing.
Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to another episode of A Great Conversation. Today my guest is Andrew Ghai. You guys probably know Andrew as the co-founder of Action Industries. He's my best friend, somebody I've worked with for a very long time. Now, I knew the answer to a lot of Andrew's questions before I asked them, but I expected, like the professional that he is, he would open up and give me great answers. He did. This interview is really, really cool. He talks about a lot of the most important things to him, his ambitions, things he hasn't done yet, things that feel like maybe even shortcomings to this point in his life. Ultimately, you guys are going to find out a lot about the guy. And to be honest, I even found out things that I didn't know as well. So enjoy the show. If you guys have not already hit that subscribe button, please do. It means a lot. I'm trying to hit 2,000 subs by tomorrow. This is June 5th. You guys are hearing this on Friday. My birthday is June 6th. Tomorrow, the big goal was 2,000 subs by my birthday. I've got a gigantic announcement coming at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on this channel. Trust me, it will be really, really exciting. If you guys are fans of what I'm doing, I think you'll like it. So tune in for that live stream. Lots of things happening tomorrow. But otherwise, hit that like button. Leave a comment below about what you think. New channels, comments do mean a lot, guys. I promise you, if you leave a comment, I will respond to you. And otherwise, enjoy the show. Andrew was a gem. He was a real treat. All right, guys, let's get into it. Thanks a lot. Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to another episode of A Great Conversation here on Nerds and Suits. Today, I've got a guest that you probably know of. You've probably seen him. He's huge in Beijing. I'm just kidding. He may be huge in Beijing. I don't know. I've never been. I've got Andrew Ghai, my co-host on Action Industries, co-creator of the brand, and my best friend. He's coming on the show today to talk about his life, and hopefully I can embarrass him about losing weight. All right, Drew, welcome to the show.
And gaining weight again. So it's good. It's a full circle. Hello, Benjamin. I put on a shirt. I put on a shirt with buttons because I wanted to take this seriously, man.
You showing off your pecs for the fans?
No, they're gone. They're just they're drooping now. There's a lot of cheesecake in there.
A lot of
no, thanks for having me on, man. This is cool. I'm excited. I really am.
No, this should be a lot of fun. It's funny. We got on the phone the other day and I was like, so, is there anything I can't ask about? You were like, man, you should just talk to me as though you don't know me, but with exactly the same level of comfort that we have.
Yeah. And then I was like, wait, no, I think I said that wrong. I was like, well, you got to act like you do know me, but you don't know everything about. And I was like, man, this has already gone completely off the rails. But I'm sure you've done a lot of extensive research since that phone call about me.
I looked you up and I found Collider Wiki on you. And I started reading about No, I didn't do that. I've done that in the past because we're on the same Collider Wiki.
I was going to say, I was like, I've looked at this. I've seen this. It's mostly good.
Have you wondered about the day you're going to get a Wikipedia page made about you? Like, have you thought about that? Like, I know like every person who like is in the public eye thinks about when you look someone up, like that's the thing you look for.
Yeah. I definitely have thought about it. I haven't. You wonder like what the thing is that's going to be like enough for you to have one, because I feel like there's some Wikipedia pages that have like basically nothing on them, right? But then there's other ones that are very, very extensive. I bet it'll come in the next 5 years. I hope so. But there's I haven't started making one on my own yet for myself.
So on that subject though of the wiki, I remember that recently I got followed by like a wiki notes type of thing on Twitter, and they like reached out. They said, like, hey, if you want any help creating a Wikipedia page, we're a service that does that. And I like pondered it for a minute. I was like,
a service. Is that? I feel like that's not the cool thing to do, right? I feel like one has to get made for you. George Washington didn't make his.
No, he didn't. It's just a service that's preying on the ego of self-involved artists who are like,
yeah, I could do this.
Nobody will know.
No one will know it was me. It'll be this service, and I think it's about time that I have a Wikipedia page. I also don't know what mine would really say yet. I mean, I guess it would. There's a decent amount of stuff that I've been involved in. Like definitely, I said, I've seen some that are like really short Wikipedia pages, but whatever. It doesn't mean like a huge thing to me.
Right. Yeah. I think the Wikipedia thing is one of those funny pieces of culture that we live in now, especially like you and I, we live in this culture because we're so used to the social media and the digitization of everything. Like for instance, you and I were just talking the other day about Twitter and how like it's right now the best news source. Like it's the
Yeah.
best news source in the world. I'm getting all of my news from Twitter. But like 10 years ago or whatever, probably 8 years ago, people didn't look at Twitter as like an essential piece of the way you like interacted with the world. It feels now like it's an essential piece. Like without Twitter, I would be like missing a piece of the world.
Yeah, I mean, I use it for news just because it has so much of everyone's opinion. It's like there are obviously biased sources on there, but you see so much of everything that you can see both sides of every argument, which I think is great. And it is interesting about all these things you're talking about because I think it brings a level of like validity to everyone. The blue check mark on Twitter, having a Wikipedia page, these types of things make you a real human. There's my frame, a real human being in this like world that we're in, where like the digital is so highly respected because it's like you can follow it back to see if things are true or not, or and I think that's another big thing about the Wikipedia thing is like I don't think there's really a huge reason for me to have one yet because of the level of accomplishments, but also because I don't think people are like, where did this guy come from and what is he up to?
Well, I do think it's interesting, right? Like so you mentioned you've done a lot of stuff, and I know, I mean, I've been around you for like a lot of the stuff you've done, and to varying degrees. Like I think you and I would both look at our last 5 years or 6 years and be like, yeah, we've done some, but not a lot in the grand scheme of what we want to do, right? It feels like we've done a tiny, tiny sliver, but to someone who sees you on like a TBS broadcast of CRL or watches you in a movie trivia schmodown match or something and doesn't know who you are and they want to know, they're going to Google you and what are the first 5 things that come up? And if you have a Wikipedia page, you seem a hell of a lot more legit. That's just the truth.
Yeah, for sure.
And that has happened. I'm sure that's happened to you. I'm sure it's happened to me, and we don't even know it.
Yeah. I mean, my girlfriend Googled me before we went on our first date. I mean, I think that's kind of what you do now. I mean, every business is going to Google you. Like Googling someone is just a thing you do now.
Did Ashley think she was going out with the dastard? I hope so.
She was like, this guy seems kind of like he could be a jerk. But then she like watched our AMA stuff because she mainly wanted to just make sure that I didn't have like a really high squeaky voice. I don't know why that's like the number one thing she was concerned with. She was like, I just had to make sure you sounded the way that I hoped you did.
That's like, amazing. And what if you had sat down to dinner and or you should be like, nice to meet you. You'd be like, really nice to meet you. For my first course, I'd like to order it. Like,
oh, I should have. She didn't tell me till later, but I thought that was so funny. But yeah, she Googled me and she's like, it is interesting because you talk about like without the Wikipedia page, you can also go down these tangents of what if she only watched the dastard stuff. She's like, she went there to see what my voice sounded like. She's like, wow, this guy's a prick. I do not want to go out with him.
That's pretty funny. That's pretty funny. So I remember getting back to some of the stuff you mentioned you had done. I remember this one moment vividly. So you and I have known each other for probably like 7 or 8 years now, I would think. Probably since maybe longer.
I think it's longer than that now. Yeah.
Like 9 years or something.
Yeah, 8 or 9, I think probably. Yeah.
Probably met back like 2011. And there was like this moment because you came to LA to be an actor. That was the thing you want. You came here, you moved here to do that. Specifically, that wasn't hosting or anything else or modeling. It was you were going to be an actor. That's the plan. Still is the plan. Yeah. And I remember there was this conversation we had when we were working at Library Ale House. You had just booked this movie. You had just booked like, I think Rumor Willis was in it. Do you remember this?
Yeah. Woman on the Ledge or something like that. It's like it's a Hallmark movie or a Lifetime. It's a Lifetime movie.
It's a Lifetime movie. And I remember you had just booked it and like you had started doing some stuff because well, all right, I'm going down a rabbit hole of a story that I feel like I actually want to save. Okay. More on that later. More on the Rumor Willis movie later.
Look, man, her and me and her chin, we're all in a scene together. It was a beautiful moment.
Did you play like a cop in that movie or something?
She did. She was actually a sweetheart. I don't want to sound like a jerk. She was really sweet on set. She was very focused. But yeah, I'm excited to hear what the story or where you're going to go with this.
Well, it was more of a heartfelt one, but I think we'll back up for a second because I think one thing that people who are watching this, maybe you've heard this before, maybe you guys don't know, but the thing, Drew and I really got close because we both went through these significant breakups back in like 2012 or 2013. Yeah. And you lived on my couch for a period of time. I don't remember exactly how long it was that you lived on my couch, but do you remember your life like feeling like from the time you entered my couch till the time you left my couch? changed significantly? Because I feel like watching you, I seem to remember there was a light that turned on.
I felt like your couch was probably like the cocoon. You
Right.
know,
That's
I
exactly
came
what
out
I
a
was getting at.
butterfly. I was like an overweight alcoholic butterfly, but I had come out as a butterfly. Yeah, the couch was a crazy place, man. It was a time of a lot of reflection. So like we joke around a lot, and I think a lot of this interview is going to be us laughing about certain things, but at the same time, like we also know each other's deepest, darkest secrets, and
Yeah,
the
right.
couch was a rough time. That was one of the worst times of my life. Like people don't actually, when I say I drank a half bottle to a bottle of Jameson a day and watched Warrior and cried on your couch and fell asleep every night, I think they think it's probably like a bit of an exaggeration. Like, yeah, storytelling, man, that must have been rough. That was literally my life. One of my best friends also was my boss at the time. He was like, I mean, I've told you this before. Alex was like, you get a week, dude. You get a week of this. And this is already after a couple weeks of being like a mess at my job regularly. Crazy thing is I was still good with customers, and the customers couldn't tell, but the staff could tell, and Alex could tell. And so for me, I think the biggest thing was I was like, what have I done with my life so far in LA? I've done so little of the things I want to do. And it's like, why? And I think a lot of it comes from needing validation. I mean, part of it was just trying to survive, right? That's one of the things you and I have always said to one another. One of the most important things in LA is to just be able to stay above water. You don't have to be swimming. You just don't want to be drowning. You just got to just this much above water, right? Like that's it. As long as you can breathe. And we talk about, and when we say that, it's metaphorically speaking, it's financially. That's what we're talking about. It's just money strictly because LA is so expensive. So obviously that's what I spent a lot of my time on, was like getting a good enough base that I could pursue my creatives and have enough money to enroll in the things that I needed to do. But it was all, do you cuss on this? Do people cuss on this or no?
Yeah, go right ahead.
It was all bullshit. It was like a lie I was telling to myself, because I wasn't spending any of my money on that. And all the money that I did save, I was just pouring into relationships. I'd been in like 3 relationships since I came to LA. Not like intense ones, or like real ones, I should say, but like dated a few people, but like 2 real relationships, right? There was the first girl that I met at my first job, and then there was the girl, Hannah, that I dated for a long time. Anyway, all these years down the road and ending up on your couch, I just realized, what did I actually do with any of my time here? I worked so much and I saved money and I spent it on doing nothing. So the couch was like a moment where I was like, dude, this is like, look at this. Look at all the years you've spent, all the money you've made and spent, all the relationships you've had, the heartbreaks, the ups and the downs. And like, you still have not done what you want to do at all.
When I first met you, your story was that you had this movie that you had been sort of cast in. It was this thing you're working on. It was going to start filming. You wanted to be an actor. And you would talk about it, but it was that thing, right? Like you meet a lot of performers out here who have that thing. They say, oh, I have a thing coming up with this director, or I'm going to be releasing an album next year, something like that. And sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. That moment, I think, when you're talking about that sort of like you hadn't done it, I think is the moment you decided to let that story go and move on to something new. And I feel like your career started.
Yeah. And honestly, I know this is your show and I'm your friend, and I don't want to like aggrandize it, but it was really you and signing me up for improv that changed everything. Because it was like, you had told me, you're like, look, man, you've been on my couch for I think a couple months at that point, or like 6 weeks or whatever it was, and you'd watch me just like drink myself into oblivion and just being so depressed.
Try to light my house on fire.
Try to light your house on fire and then blame it on my cousin. It's a good time, man. It's a good time. It was an accident. Okay.
Yeah.
Didn't mean to turn on the heater. And like I remember you telling me like, look, you need to just do this. Just do this with me. It's like, well, I think it was once a week or twice a week at the time. And it was, you were like, I'm signing up. My buddy Ray's teaching it. He's a good dude. I've known him. I've hung out with him before. He's in this circle, group of friends. I was like, oh, I know all of them. They're all nice. Ray sounds cool. And you're like, also, you just need to get up and do something, like just for an hour and a half, few hours. I think it was like 2 hours a day. Like, just do it. So you can pretend to be happy, to pretend to be productive. And then you can go back to drinking on the couch and watching Warrior. Then you can do your thing, man. But like, just sign up for this class. And like, I tried to talk myself out of it numerous times because it was like $280 or something. I was like, I don't have that. I can't do it. And you just did not let me have an excuse. I think that was the day, dude. I think that was the actual day where things started to turn because enough time had passed. And like, I had also started to do something that made me feel good.
a creative thing. I think
Yeah.
one thing you mentioned here, and I really appreciate you giving me that credit, but I really do think when you look at people's lives, you look at the full trajectory of someone's life, like, now it's been long enough since that happened. It was 6 years ago. We're talking about,
Yeah.
um, 6 years ago, that all I did was introduce you to two ideas, right? That was it. It was two ideas. And I had a little bit of get up and go at that point. I've been maybe at it, really trying to push myself for maybe a year longer than that or something like that. But I mean, not by much.
Hmm.
And all I did was introduce you to a couple of things. But you wanted it, right? That was why it
Yeah.
happened. It's not I didn't do anything. I didn't save you. Like, you stuck with improv. I didn't, right? Like, you've gone on to have a more successful career technically as a host than I have. I mean, that's like, you just wanted it and you went and got it. And I think it's always a misnomer when people say like, well, you only got this because of this. It's never
Right.
because of one thing, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
always a
Agreed.
series of choices you make, and it's always a series of applications. This brings me to kind of to my story, though, that I was just telling a second ago about Rumor Willis's chin. And no, no, no. What I remember is we either were at work or talking on the phone or something. I don't remember what it was. You and I had like a bit of a falling out for a brief period, and I don't remember.
Yeah.
Might have been after that. I don't honestly remember when the conversation exactly took place, but I do remember you had booked a few things. You had an agent, and I just remember you saying like, man, it feels like for a long time I was trying to catch up to what you were doing, and it really finally feels like I've got something on my own. I'm doing it now. And I don't remember what year it was specifically, but I remember when you said that, like, it's weird because I think to the audience it'll sound sort of competitive, but I don't think that's what it is. I think it was you sort of recognizing for yourself that, like, you had something real, your hands were wrapped around something now, you weren't going to
Yeah.
let it go. You know
I
what I
mean,
mean?
because for a really long time, and I don't know how many people will be able to empathize with this, but when you get brought into social circles, you're kind of like that guy's friend. You're Ben's buddy. Oh yeah, you're
Right,
Ben's
right,
guy.
right.
Like you and Ben do the thing, right? And for a long time, that was what it was, and I was okay with it because like I also didn't want the weight on my shoulders of like this thing, whatever it was, my career, my hosting endeavors, to like just be on me. I didn't feel confident enough in like who I was and my abilities as a host yet, and as just a human, to build that real confidence. Like there's a different, I was confident when I came to LA, but then I came to LA and actually got here and settled in, and I was like, no, I'm not confident. I am not confident yet. You
Kicked your
know,
ass a little bit, yeah.
it totally did. It totally did. So when I finally said that to you, that's when it felt like I'd really latched on to, I guess, my name as a brand. I didn't think I didn't recognize that's what it was yet. Like because that's really what it is as a host, like Andrew Guy and Ben Bateman. That's really who we are. Obviously that's our names, but
Yeah,
like that's
yeah, yeah.
also our brand, and so is Action Industries. But when I said that to you, it felt like I had finally done enough to where I was starting to get the respect of people I respected. I think that's a good way to put it. People that I
Yeah,
respected started to recognize like this guy's starting to hustle, whether it was at the theater or at AfterBuzz or in auditions or in
yeah.
acting classes. It was like, okay, this is a guy. I remember in my acting class once, at the end, the teacher always gives notes, and she was like, Andrew, when you first came into this class, I thought you were going to be super broy and like, like kind of brooding and like, just hard to get through. And she's like, I was wrong. First of all, like you're none of those things. You're also, I would want to work with you on anything because you're a hard worker and you care. And and like that's it. She was like, you care so much about the things that you work on, and I can always rely on you to be there. So it's just like these things of like being reliable, being on time, like these small things that started to make me feel like, okay, people recognize me as being a good person to be around at work, so maybe they can start to recognize my talent, which is, maybe I can start to shine now that they're giving me the chance and I have the confidence based off of these small things, if that makes sense.
It totally makes sense. I mean, because I think the funny thing is, like, we talk about sort of finding that identity, that brand, whatever you want to call it, connecting to that thing that makes you feel like you're moving kind of at a speed.
Yeah.
I mean, I moved to LA in 2009, with probably more sort of recognizable A level promise or what's the word I'm looking for, potential, than I have now, because I moved here with an agent and a manager, and I was auditioning for
Right.
like leads in CW shows and things that I was not qualified for at all. But I came in, like shot out of a cannon. That's what you do when you first get here.
Yeah.
But I didn't have any connection to it. I didn't know how lucky I was to have those opportunities. I didn't actually understand how to be in shape. I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
None of it really made sense to me. Right. I had this job at a bar, same one that you and I met at,
And it's all these years later, despite the fact that those were bigger opportunities and I was in bigger rooms, that it started to click like, oh, okay, I actually know how to do this now. I can wake up at the start of the day and go do something and interact with people, and I'm not full of shit. I'm not talking to them like I'm doing something I'm not really doing. I'm actually doing it.
Yeah, and I remember like being brought into conversations with people that you respect or people that you look up to, and you're like, wow, I'm holding my own. I actually have things to say now. I can contribute, or at least I have opinion that's valid and respected. All these things, those are like the small things for me in the beginning that gave me what made me feel like I was like, all right, I'm actually moving in the right direction for the first time. For the first time being in LA in I guess at that point, like 4 years? Over 4 years, it was like I'm finally moving in the right direction.
Do you remember that conversation we're talking about, or is it just like kind of a general vibe you remember feeling at a time?
I mean, I don't remember it like specifically, but I do remember you asking me about that, or like me telling you that I felt like, because it was a big thing for me, because again, it felt like I was like your dude. I was like Ben's buddy, and I was cool with that. But I also wanted to kind of build something for myself, right? I don't want to just like have to bank my success off of being your friend, because also a lot of our endeavors and interests are different. Like I do want to still be an actor. So, it was a big, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to ask you during that period of time before you found the hotel of my couch and you were dating the girls we talked about. And you were working in restaurants and doing your thing. Do you have a memory from that time of somebody you cared about kind of making a comment, like an offhanded comment about you not living your dream that sticks with you? Like one that like hurt, that kind of drives you? Anything like that?
I mean, not like specific ones from people that I cared about, because people you care about, they always try to sugarcoat things. They'll ask you questions that they don't mean to insult you, but they do. You'll book something. They're like, oh, when can I watch it on TV? Or like, oh, how much did you get paid? Or, blah, 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 and they're not trying to be mean. They're just trying to be supportive and ask the questions that they think they understand. But those moments are also things that's like, God damn it, I want to be able to like, oh yeah, TBS. Oh yeah, X amount of dollars, these things. So, because only so many people can actually understand the struggle. So even when you do get a small job that doesn't pay you, but it'll like, it's for, what do they always say? Exposure, right? Whatever it is. Those are still wins in our book, right? Like they still feel really good. I do remember there was a guy that isn't a friend of ours, but he did say something about me being like a 30-year-old waiter that'll never make it, when I wasn't even 30 yet. And at the time I was just waiting tables and I didn't have a lot of money in my bank. And I just remember thinking, and I think this still a lot, but I thought a lot more then. I was like, am I a fraud? Like, am I just...
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Who am I? Why do I think I can do this? And I was like, it sucks. But also go ahead.
No, go ahead. Sorry, I was going to jump.
I was going to say also back to like my childhood and like the way that I was raised, which you know a lot about. I've always had a chip on my shoulder. So even though those comments aren't meant to be hurtful, I still remember them. And even though that guy did mean to be hurtful and he doesn't matter to me as a person, I still remember him. So it's like this chip on my shoulder of being like, I need to do this. I'm going to do this, not to prove them wrong, but because I have to do this anyway. Inherently, like this is what I must do for some reason, an inexplicable reason. I'm driven to this one passion that I can't avoid.
Yeah.
And these comments, they stick with me along the way so that I can just, when I get there, I can be like, you know what? Remember all these moments? Not to say F you to anyone, but just to be like, these are the things that got me. These are just as important as the good moments are the bad moments.
I think when you and I brought on Iceman to Action Guys recently, we had a conversation that kind of reminded us a little bit of that. He talked a lot about the steps along the way and how every opportunity being sort of important in its own way. I know you've told me that story about the person who said that, and I think I remember it happening, but for some reason I can't remember who it was.
It was in our fantasy football league.
Okay. Yeah.
And it was the one person that we all hated in our fantasy football league. The one guy. That guy.
Dickhead.
Exactly. He said that. He typed it out in the chat, and like I remember, because we have our our Facebook Messenger chat, and I knew a couple of our buddies was like, they immediately said something, and I remember you maybe sent a message to me, or we talked. You were like, yeah, you did, screw that guy, who cares? But for some reason, there's those small things that still stick with you. You
Well,
know,
that guy was the ultimate
that
dick
guy was
bag.
a
That guy was like
dick,
that
dude.
guy was like Rafi in the league. I mean, like
That
he
guy was
literally
the
feels
absolute, but he was worse than Robbie because he wasn't even funny.
it wasn't even funny. Wasn't he like why are we
Oh
protecting his
God.
name? His name was George. That's
His
what we're
name was
talking about, right?
George. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I don't
I
know
don't even fucking
why.
know his last name. Yeah, but he was this guy that got brought into the league, and he was like a friend of another guy whose name we will protect.
Yeah,
And the friend that we had was like a pretty good friend of ours, somebody who we like really respected. And
yeah.
he brought him in, and he was like, "Look, I totally vouch for this guy.
He's a
the
good
best."
guy.
Within like one season, he was like definitely confirmed to be a racist. He also was definitely confirmed to have like borrowed money that he didn't pay
Yeah,
back.
stole money. Like
He's the
Stitch
fucking
Town. Like he was
worst.
the worst guy all the way around. And but yeah, for some reason that's one of the moments that's just stuck with me.
Yeah, that's really interesting. You mentioned that. I know those moments. One thing that has really been sticking with me recently as we sort of talk about the idea of success, and it's a very interesting conversation to have with you of all people, because so much of the good that has happened in my career is the same good that's happened in yours. So
Yeah.
it's like we both sort of understand the struggles. But um, when you read stories of like actors or musicians or athletes especially, there's a point always where they peak, and then there's the back half of the career, whenever the point is after the peak, where they're still relevant to you for whatever reason. Maybe you are a fan, or maybe they do something else relevant, but they're never as famous or as awesome or successful, whatever it is, as they were in that peak moment. And it's really interesting. Like, I'm a big fan of the Goo Goo Dolls. You guys know this, and I've been listening to this serious show recently where Resnick, the singer, is interviewing all these other big bands, and like he openly kind of will admit on the show here and there, like, yeah, I mean, like 98, 2000, that was like we were the biggest we ever were. Like he'll kind of just admit it out loud because it's
Right.
like he's aware of it, right? So I think about that sometimes, like when I think about when will it peak? Do you ever think about that? Like, what's the moment in my career when I'm going to peak? Will I even know it's peaking?
Yeah, I've thought about, like, because I'm already in my 30s, right? I'm 32 now,
Right.
and I know I'm still so young. And we've heard all the stories of all the people, and we see it all the time. Even actors that we've liked before that were in these small things when they were younger, in their 40s they break out, in their 50s they have their massive role. I don't know, man. I hope I haven't peaked yet. That would be really bad for me. I feel like if I'd already hit my peak and I didn't really recognize it. The second part of your question kind of freaks me out, though, because I think that's one of the hard things about being people like you and I. Not people in entertainment, but I'm sure this speaks for a lot of people in entertainment. But like that drive that never goes away. It's like this insatiable beast of no matter what you're doing, it's not enough, or no matter how good it gets, you need. It's not that you need more. It's that you're like, all right, if this is good now, what's the next thing? How do I make this better? What's the next step up? So I'm sure I'll get to, because I'm already in a moment right now. I mean, this is definitely a moment where I look at my life and I'm like, wow, I am so lucky.
Yeah.
Considering where I live and what I do for work and like my financial situation, I'm in one of the better positions I've ever been in my life, and I'm very happy and grateful for it. But this can't be it for me, and I hope that in, let's say, 10 or 15 years, when I'm maybe at my peak, or in 10 years, let's say I hit my peak, maybe I land that huge thing, and then, or let's say I win some award, and then from there on out, it's like, yeah, people still know me and respect me, but I'm never that big again. I think I'll see it come and go, and I'll think in the moment, all right, what's the next award? What's the next movie? Right. And it just won't come. And I don't really know how I'm going to deal with that, right? Because I've never gotten to that level yet for me to really regress. Because it feels like if I regress now, it's because I'm not working hard enough.
One thing on that subject that I think is really interesting is the relationship that performers have to the pressure and ego, and how it involves substance abuse. It's something that I hear more and more and more on podcasts and interviews, and when I read books, and I hear it now. I think maybe I notice it more because you and I are definitely two people that have a tendency to get overserved sometimes.
Yeah, been there.
We definitely like to drink, and even again, like just a couple hours ago, I was just listening to the podcast I mentioned, and one thing that I had never ever heard Resnick say before that really stuck with me is he's like, I would get so mad at my bandmate, I'd get so angry with him and resent him. I didn't feel like we were friends, but what that was is I had to get sober.
Wow.
And I'd heard him reference it like I had been sober for a year, talking about it. But the way he talks about it is it sounds like it came at a much later point in his career, way past the point that I was talking about when they were at their biggest.
Right.
And it starts to make you wonder, similarly, like I've told you the story of our friend John Sheck, who in the 90s was like this really big movie star, ended up with a great TV career, like doing a lot of movies and stuff. One of the things he said when I interviewed him was like, I kind of drank away some of my best years. I didn't take seriously what I had. Do you ever look at substances, whether it's, I mean, you're pretty open about liking to smoke weed and drinking, as like, this is going to be the death of me. The only way I can achieve what I want is to not have this in my life at all, period. Go cold turkey.
It's interesting because you go in waves, right? With it, where you have more control and less control. And right now is a really interesting and trying time because like I have so little to do during the day. And there's so many things that make me upset when online. And I only shop at the grocery store now, so I have half gallons of alcohol sitting around. So if I read something online that pisses me off, I don't have to go anywhere tomorrow. I gotta look. I guess I gotta look pretty good here, for my broadcast and stuff. But I find myself being in a weird place with it right now. Again, just because of that, of just like the demand to be anywhere. If I was still single, I'd say yes.
Yeah.
Since I'm not single, and since I think, I love my girlfriend. I think she's amazing, and I think she's probably the best thing that's ever happened to me. And it's like a really nice thing to be able to say that. You get older and you start to recognize things that are more and less important in relationships. And I got pretty lucky with the person that I'm with, and I think that, I mean, hopefully. Who knows? What if I get to the peak and then I start to descend and I can't handle it? That's one thing maybe that'll be really rough on me, that hopefully in 10, 15 years from now, I'll have her and maybe kids that'll help keep me balanced. But as of right now, I think I've got a pretty good grasp on drinking, in the sense of it. I don't think it could be destructive to my lifestyle, but I do know that if I was single, and especially right now, I would be incredibly depressed, and I would drink a lot more. And I don't know, man. I think it's important for me at least, to have someone keep me accountable, and the first step was like the dog. I was like, I can't just go out and do what I used to do, because this was even before I got serious with my girlfriend. I was like, because I have a dog I need to come home to, and I need to walk him at night. I have to walk him in the morning. So I had to start building routine in my life to kind of keep it more in line. Do I slip? Yes. Does it happen often? Yeah, for sure. Do I feel like it's ruining my life anymore? No. Right? Like, that's the one thing. Whereas like before, and I think you froze. Oh, you're back. Whereas before, I felt like I would do stuff and I'd call you. I'd be like, God, man, like this XYZ happened because I was drinking, or I would just wake up with like the blues. Huh?
Yeah. The depressed phone call. Like, did I do anything last night? That's the worst. That's the tough one.
Yeah. So I think if you have, we've had this conversation so many times, that I think if you have things in moderation, as hard as that might be, and it might work for some people, it doesn't work for a lot of people. But as of right now, trying to deal with my life in moderation, because I do think there's this thing about entertainment that just drives you to just want to drink, man. I don't know if it's like, I love Jack Nicholson for a lot of reasons, but one of the quotes he in one of these books I was reading, he talked about like how every time as an actor, it's like everything you do after the audition is kind of heartbreaking. Like, because it's the last time you do every one of these things. I mean, after you book the role, excuse me, not after the audition, but after you book the role, because you booked the role, and that's the peak. Everything after that, even though it's amazing and performing and being on set is great, also in the back of your mind, you're like, this is day one in, but that means there's only 89 left. And and so it becomes this thing. And then also as an actor, you start to fall in love with your cast and your crew, but mainly your character, this person that you build and develop. So I think that also drives you to be sad a lot. And I think that the time in between projects, the boredom drives you to do that a lot, So again, I think moderation is what I'm trying to do. It's kind of working.
Do you think that when you talk about kind of those inspirations, Jack Nicholson and that peak you're looking for, do you attach a lot of it to the idea of that you want to do it for your mother, to make your family proud, but specifically your mom? I mean, I know she's very important to you.
Yeah. I mean, I know my mom is already like so proud of me, which is like a great feeling. And I'm a very lucky person to have a mother that tells me that so regularly, even in moments when I feel like she shouldn't. but I do want to do a lot of what I want to accomplish because I want to make my mom proud. I want to make my family proud. I kind of want to tell my dad to suck it by him seeing it. I don't really talk to my dad, but I'd love for him to just see it one day and just be like, wow, that's my kid up there. Holy shit. But a lot of what I want to do as I've gotten older, I've realized is obviously I want to be like, as an actor, I want to be in a great film, a film that like people remember, people that like a film that might change things, whatever it might be. It doesn't have to be like a political thing. Doesn't have to be about the societal thing. It could just be about like, holy shit, this changed cinema, whatever it is. I want to be in a movie like that or a role like that. But then everything else, that's like self-serving, right? That's like a very self-serving thing for me. But I also want to do a lot of things with my money as I've gotten older, taking care of my family, helping develop policy in places that need change, education specifically, because of, again, the person that I'm with brings light to like, I used to feel so helpless about so many issues and I still do, but at least I know that if my career, which is very self-serving and like, makes me look like a star truly, if I accomplish what I want, at least I can hopefully do some good with my finances, because the money that comes behind our careers is obscene. If we're a successful host or a successful actor, everyone knows you make millions of dollars. Yeah. So not only do I want to like take care of my family and retire my mom and help my sisters and stuff out and like, set up education funds for all my nieces and nephews and blah, blah, blah. But like, I also want to see if I can use that money and that success to actually help do good for the world. Cause I don't know how the hell to do it on my own. It's too much for me to take on, but I do know if you have money, you can at least do something. It makes some of that easier, right?
Yeah, I mean, it can't buy happiness, but it certainly can buy opportunity and creativity. I mean, it can make things a lot easier. Yeah. You talk about a film that would change the world, or at least be memorable. You and I have talked about this a lot on the various shows. Like when you see an actor who has like that one movie, that like peak sort of thing they were in, that one thing they're always remembered for. Yeah. Would that be enough for you? I mean, like, just take, for instance, like, I don't know, let's say you're Joseph Gordon-Levitt in Inception. You're that role. Right. Is that what we're talking about? Let's talk about Bruce Greenwood. Let's
talk about Bruce Greenwood's incredibly successful career. It's consistent, man. It is consistent. It's so funny because you asked that question, and in my mind, I'm like, is he going to say Tim Robbins in Shawshank? Because that's like one of the greatest. Even then, in my mind, that's you can't even ask for that. It's like, I want to be Marlon Brando in The Godfather. It's like, okay, why don't you calm down? But like, even then, when you say that in the back of my mind, and even if you did say Robbins and Shawshank, I think I would still go, I don't know. So that's why it goes back to the question you asked me before. I hope I'm not at my peak and I just watch it pass me by.
Right. Well, I mean, so because I don't need to dwell on that. I mean, I think every person that is ambitious will have dreams they don't accomplish. They'll have dreams they do accomplish too, though, is the point, right? Like, nobody's ever going to do it exactly the way they intended to. Even Tiger, right? If Tiger never breaks the record, do you think Tiger's going to feel like Tiger failed? Probably.
Right. Probably.
He's Tiger fucking Woods.
But he set that goal for a reason, and it's
yeah. So, but like, again, with the example of those rock stars who are kind of in the back half of their career and they can acknowledge it. The one thing I've really thought about is like, do I think that he feels now in his career like less excited about where he's at than he did 20 years ago? And the answer is absolutely not.
Right.
He had a long career. He's way more in his own skin and comfortable with it now than he was then. He's made tons of money. He still gets to tour, play to thousands and thousands of people. Like, he lived his life. He did the thing. Now he's living in a different part. He's got a kid, right? Like, I think about that sometimes and I'm like, from the outside, our perspective of what that must look like is so different from the actual reality of what you're living if you can get comfortable with what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because you want such different things at different moments. I mean, I would imagine 20-year-old Andrew wanted something very different than what 32-year-old Andrew wants.
Yeah. I mean, I think in the like, if it was just like one goal, I think I've had like the one goal for a very long time. But as you get older, you realize there's a lot of other things you want to accomplish along the way. And it's not so black and white. So yeah, I definitely think they've changed. It's interesting you talk about getting older and stuff, because even if your break comes later, it's not like all the work you put in goes away. It's just that you have 20 more years of practice if you make it when you're 50, right? Or whatever it is. So then when you come out, you're like, wow, this guy's good. This, why am I forgetting his name right now? Mark, Academy Award.
Rylance.
Mark Rylance. It's like I hadn't really ever heard of Mark Rylance, but when he came out and I started watching him do stuff, I was like, everything you do is incredible.
Right.
But then on the other side of it, someone like Hopkins, who I've watched for decades, like he even says, like, as I got older, I got more patient. I felt more comfortable in my own skin. I found myself that like some of the best things I could do in acting was just pausing, just taking time, taking a breath. And like, you know, those are the types of things that you still learn as you get older. So, I mean, hopefully if I break it later, then maybe it'll just be all these more years of practice going into it.
That whole idea of like what the different decades feel like, you know, is so funny because like when you're 24 or whatever and you're like, you're not making as much money and you don't really know what you're doing as much and you're having more fun if you're single, like,
yeah,
it feels so chaotic. And it is, looking back on those years, you know, like
yeah,
it is chaotic. It feels so different than the way I feel about my life now. Like I have no interest in like going out to a bar.
Oh God, no.
Staying up all night and meeting some random girl and having a horrible hangover and drinking too much and like the next day being trashed and not being able to function and like missing work stuff. Like that sounds like a fucking nightmare.
Yeah.
As 24-year-old, that sounds like a party.
You're like, all right, I could probably do this a couple times a month. It sounds fun. You know, those nights are fun, and they are fun, but they're so destructive to anything. They're the opposite of productive.
Yeah, man. So you mentioned just a second ago when we were talking about kind of why you do things and you wanting your dad to suck it.
It's a healthy thing, right?
It's a totally healthy thing. I know you've talked about this like a little bit on air. I remember on Miss Movies show a few years back, you talked about this, but you don't bring it up much. It's not a thing that is like brought up often. So for the people that are listening and don't know, you were raised in a house of women for a reason. I don't know if you want to elaborate on it at all or.
Yeah. I mean, like, so long story short is my family on my father's side was like incredibly religious and incredibly radically religious. My dad is Indian, and I don't need to speak on which type of Indian he is. People always ask that. I don't know. That just doesn't feel productive. I don't know enough about him and his family to really feel like that does either of them a service. So he and his family, his family threatened to basically kill me and my mom and him if they got married. That was like the thing. He found out that he was pregnant with my mom, or my mom was, wow, I can say this. Yeah. He and my mom were pregnant with me. And then he told his family that they were going to get married. And that's when that came out. And he then tried to have the pregnancy terminated. You know, he was like, if I can't be there and we can't do this, like you shouldn't have this baby and my family will never support it. And my mom just couldn't do it. You know, she tried, she thought about it. She thought about her life and she realized no matter what, she couldn't be with the person that she loved. But at the end of the day, she just decided to keep the kid and raise him on her own, even though she already had 3 daughters and she was kind of already, I mean, not kind of, she'd already been a single mother for a while. Their dad wasn't completely out of the picture, but she still was raising 3 daughters most of the time on her own. She had sole custody. So I had a lot of anger towards my dad for a really long time. I felt like if he was a man, a man, he would have stood up for his woman at the time, since they weren't married. I don't know, his girlfriend and his son, his unborn son and then born son. Cause he was around for a little bit when I was first born, before he was involved in arranged marriage, which came like less than a year after I was born. I'm pretty sure less than a couple of years. I don't know a lot of the details about that stuff because I think I was like, as a kid, you're really upset a lot and you don't understand. And then when you try to understand more, you just get more upset.
Yeah.
So then you kind of just like ignore it for a long time. And then you get upset again. And then you try to I don't know. It's weird, the whole emotional roller coaster of it. But now it's at the point where I don't think I really talk about it because it doesn't really faze me anymore. Like my mom did a great job and it was very hard on me in many moments of my life. But at the same time, I had a great life, so complaining about it and also when you get older, I think you recognize like, damn man, there's a lot of really hard decisions to make. Do I or my mother think his family would have killed us? Probably not. But also if I'm that guy and I'm his age and I get a woman pregnant and I have that type of family, I have no idea what that must feel like, So there's things that you hold against that person. just because of like, you know, the issues that it might have caused you growing up. But I think also now I just want him to see it so that he could just see it. It's not so, I mean, it is definitely kind of a fuck you, but it's not like the same fuck you that it used to be growing up, right? Before it used to kind of be like like that kind of that one. Whereas now it's kind of like you kind of give them the bird as you walk away and you see them in passing and they're like, wait, is that, oh shit. You know, that's kind of what it is. I don't think he's a bad person.
It's like a little bit of the like, I have conviction in what I want to do, which is how I got here. Why couldn't you have had conviction too? Kind of thing. You know, like maybe I just care a little bit more about what I care about or something like that.
Yeah. And like also like look at what you didn't want to be in the world. Right.
Yeah.
Like I already think that I've done good things in my life and I think that I've accomplished good things. But for some reason, I think that chip on my shoulder is one of the things that drives me to be like, you didn't even want me here. You know, that's why that line in Creed hits me so much. Right.
Yeah. Right.
You know, to prove that I'm not a mistake, because that's what the fuck I was to half of the people that had me. Actually, not even. I mean, obviously my mother's wonderful, but I wasn't planned. I was still a mistake, but it was a mistake that she lived with and one that he didn't, you know? And I think that's where the line is drawn. So that's why it's kind of like, I don't hate you, man, but you know, fuck you and move on.
Do you ever talk about it with your mom or it's not something you guys really ever talk about?
Not really anymore. She was always great about it because it was hard for her too. You know, it's definitely like a very hurtful thing for her as well. Not only did she have to raise the kid on her own, but she also lost the love of her life, like, you know, in an instant. So I know she's very happy now and I'm pretty happy with my life. And I think we both have a pretty healthy relationship with that. You know, we don't really ever talk to him. Neither of us do. And I think that's probably the way all three of us kind of would like it. I'd be more okay with an open line of communication with him, but at the same time, it's not something that I look for anymore or something that brings me any sort of validation or happiness.
That sense of sort of what's right, what's wrong, and now you've gotten older, you've kind of like, I guess you hold less anger and you don't feel like he's a bad person.
Yeah.
That sort of change from such a black and white attitude of what is right and what is wrong. Do you feel that about a lot of things in the world now? Do you find yourself looking, or do you find yourself still looking with just a pretty strong moral code? I mean, with what's happening in the world right now, do you have a clear vision of it, or is it confusing to you still?
You mean of like what I think the way things should be at the end of the day? Or like
what's like just not just with like that, but I just mean like with life. When you're a kid, it's very easy to see cigarettes are bad, you know, drugs are bad, you know, the sun is good. Like I don't know.
I have this little like list of things that I wrote in middle school, or I mean high school. It was like an exercise that we did for football, and it was like a small list of things we wanted to accomplish in the season, and I ended up extrapolating this idea and making a list of my life goals I wanted until I think there's like 25 things on there. There's maybe up till I was like 30 or 40. And obviously that list is very different than what my life has already become. Like, you know, how much money I wanted to make or save up or the things I would and wouldn't do and being married, having kids and a house and all that stuff. It's all not even close to what that list says. Some of the good things on there I've accomplished, but other things on there, it's just like, what were you thinking? Like this is like, you're a child, you know? And I think there's also a dark side to this answer. And I think that's as you get older, you fuck up a lot. Right.
Yeah.
And you talk about drinking and you talk about like, oh, did I do this the night before? A lot of those nights before were not good nights, I'm sure, you know, for anyone that has that moment. But even then, even without alcohol involved, because I don't want to just be this like, oh, I had alcohol issues at a certain point, because I was never like a raging alcoholic or anything like that. And I don't want to like let go of any of my responsibility of just like, I did have a lot of anger after my breakup. And I did have a lot of anger going into my early 20s because of my dad, you know, because we did start speaking again. And it's not his fault. It was just like, I didn't know how to deal with a lot of my anger. So you find yourself doing things or saying things or putting yourself in situations that you look back on and you're like, damn, dude, that was not a good decision. So I think that's what starts to make you recognize, like, I know I'm not a bad person and I know I've done things that I'm not proud of. And I think that starts to show you that not good and bad isn't just black and white. There are certain things in my mind that definitely are black and white. And I think what's going on today and how I feel about certain those issues are, and we don't need to get into that. But I do know that, like, if you get back to the whole cigarettes are bad and this is good, it's changed a lot as I've gotten older. And I think you do realize how flawed good people are. And I think that's why you and I love those flawed people in movies, right? Like, that's why we love the flawed hero in a film, is because you look at him and you're like, look, that's a real dude. He's got XYZ
Right.
problems, but he's still a good person at the end of the day, and he does this great thing. And I guess maybe that's like a very, very small metaphor for maybe how I look at my own life sometimes is like, I know I'm not perfect, but I know I'm a good person, and I want to accomplish great things. So the black and white has definitely changed as I've gotten older.
Are you sort of at a point based on that list of 25 things that you made when you were a kid? Are you at a point where you feel like you represent at least the idea of what that, like the best part of it? Like, or do you feel like it's, you were like on fucking Mars back then and now you're living on Earth?
No, I think it lands probably somewhere in between, maybe on the moon. There's things in there like, I heard there was some things in there about like certain substances maybe as I gotten older that I'd never, college was a thing, early 20s was a thing. And there were certain things about like amounts of money that I'd have saved up. And like I said, like kids and like a house and things like that like, I don't really want a house right now. I don't want to own a house right now. I want to like maybe think about buying a house in a few years. But so some of those goals that I'd set on a timeline were definitely way off of what I thought I'd be at. Where I want to land and like what I want to do at the end of the day, though, is still the same. It's been the same, right? Like the things I want to accomplish as an actor and the things that I want to do even back then. I was like, I'm pretty sure on that list it says donate at least $1 million to charity was one thing that I wrote. Even as a kid, it was a thing that I guess I was a kid. I was in high school. Yeah, you're a kid. I was like, I know that if I accomplish what I want to do as an actor, there's going to be this insane amount of money that I want to be able to do something good with. So even back then, I felt like I had the goals in mind and at least a somewhat of a wherewithal of being able to share the wealth of, because again, being an actor, it's like in order to accomplish things I want as an actor, I can't not be that level, right?
Right.
That level of status and success, finances, whatever.
So we back in 2015 started this action brand that we now do, and a lot of you guys that are watching this are probably a big part of the brand. And if you tweet something out or you post something online and you ask for something, like whether it's like support for something financially or an idea, and you'll get a response back because you have an audience now, and they care about you. They really, really, really care about you. They care about what we've done. What does that feel like for you?
It's I mean, it's amazing. I love these people and I love what they do. And I think about like where I'm at in my life because of them. But the idea that we've built like this community with these people is really, I think, the best thing, right? Because you talk about these things and all the support that you get in any endeavor that you go on, and you can't really get that anywhere else. There's just no way unless you've built this following to get that kind of support. So it feels like an incredible accomplishment on my end and on our end, but also it just feels nice, man. Community feels nice. And I don't just look at them, you and I always talk about like calling people fans, and I hate calling people fans because there's definitely people that are just fans that want to be fans. They don't really care to get to know you that well. They just want to support you from afar and say good job. And like, they don't want to know who I am deep down. Maybe they do, but there's that other group of just this community that it feels like we're doing something special. In that sense, it feels like we're giving not only for ourselves, but an escape or support for so many other people. Because it's not just our stuff, right? Like I definitely see people that are our fans get more likes or retweets or support on videos than we do certain times, and it's great because they're all supporting each other. And I think that's the best thing. I think that's the absolute best part of that community is that like. And that support when you put something online is you're like, wow, we built a place for so many people to just like love and support one another, even though it's so hard to do that so regularly.
Definitely. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you on that one more. I mean, it's the biggest motivating factor for why I think we continue doing what we're doing. Do you have a memory, one from your professional career to this point, that is the happiest memory for you or the proudest memory?
That's a good question. It's a lot of pressure because there's a lot, there's layers of it, right? There's different moments. Paying off your debt is like a really exciting thing, but that's not like something where you're like, guys, guess what? I mean, actually, I kind of did do that, but I think there's still the one moment of when I booked the feature for Bloody Eyes. I just remember driving home on the freeway and getting the call on my car. I missed the call, but I got the voicemail, and I listened to the voicemail, and I just remember I was getting off the 10, and I was exiting on 4th, and I was still coming up the on ramp, or excuse me, exiting on Lincoln. I was still coming up the on ramp, and that's when I started listening to the message. And they're like, "We want to congratulate you." And I knew, because he was like, "Hey, this is Lucas Paz, the casting director for Bloody Eyes. We want to," and it was like, "We want to congratulate." And I started like just yelling, just like, "Yeah, like fuck yeah," just like yelling in my car. And then I was like, shut up, you gotta listen. He's like, "We're casting you in the role as the lead in this movie. These are when rehearsals start, blah, 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 blah." And I just started just bawling, right? Just like crying in the car, screaming, yelling, just feeling like this is so incredible. I finally got a lead role in a movie, a feature, it's paying me. And it's like this whole thing. That was a huge moment, man. And it's weird because in hindsight and what actually became of that movie, I'm, it's like still waiting on it. It was an incredible experience, but like it hasn't quite paid off yet.
Yeah.
The other one I have, and this is an interesting one, because I was talking to my sister Sandra, and it was when I was in Tokyo in 2018 for the CRL World Finals. And I called my sister. I don't remember why we were talking, because Sandra's not the sister I'm closest with. Like, I talk to Leslie a lot more, and I love Sandra to death, but like, I just don't talk to her on the phone that regularly. But I called her when I was in Tokyo, and I remember kind of like looking around this insane hotel room I was in Chiba, and like these automated blinds that I was opening while we were on the phone, and like all this swag I'd been given on my bed. And I just was like talking to her about it, and it felt like that was a moment where I realized I'd been hitting not the peak, but a peak. Because I was kind of talking to her about it, and I kind of, that's you feel your voice break, and you don't really know why. And I remember telling her, I was like, I don't really know why I'm crying right now, because we were just having a normal conversation. I was just like telling you what my hotel looked like.
Yeah.
But it was also a moment where I was like, holy shit, I'm in Tokyo right now getting paid to talk about video games in this insane 5-star hotel room, like paid for. Like, this isn't real life. Like, this is what feels like a real step, because so many of the steps you take along the way are like, this is a step, right? Yeah, this is a step. This has got to be a step. It's not backwards. It definitely can't be backwards. This is like the smallest step forward. And that for me felt like a massive step. Truth be told, a couple months later, I was one of the brokest I've ever been in my life, and very depressed. But that was a moment for me that was like, and because of that, because of the World Finals and because of CRL, my life is so much better now. So I did recognize it, at least in that moment. But for some reason, talking to Sandra that day, that really sticks with me.
Yeah, those memories are kind of one of a kind. I know I definitely know that kind of feeling you're talking about, where, and it never feels like you're in it, or you're making it, or you're doing it when you're doing it.
Yeah.
I guess occasionally it probably does, right? Like every once in a while.
You look around at some party you're at, or some day of filming, and you're like, wow, this is pretty cool.
Yeah, you're on set or something. I think when you and I were in New York at the New York Comedy Club, I think that was like a pretty cool moment.
Yeah.
Right. To
Houston was insane. I mean, like walking out with someone that you think
that.
is, Booker T's a legend. We grew up hearing his name, and like you and I selling out an event together against each other was like, that was another thing. I mean, there's been so many now, dude. That's the thing, is like the small steps along the way, and that work we put in back then, we start to have these bigger moments more regularly. And it's crazy. The idea that you asked me, and it's like, oh yeah, it's this. Oh yeah. And then this thing, we could go forever, you and I now.
I know. It's also, well, it's funny too, because like, you mentioned like TBS, you're like, it's TV, but it's like, it almost feels like it's rarely the ones that if you're explaining to people, the one is going to be the biggest to them is rarely the one that means the most to you. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Right. Like I remember like booking the AT&T red carpet for the ESPYs. It was going to be on the Rich Eisen show. I remember thinking like, wow, this is the ESPYs. This is going to be on TV. This is on the Eisen show. Like, I'm talking to all the celebrities. I'm here. Like, there's a TV crew. I'm getting paid to like literally just show up and do this.
Yeah.
And like, no one cared. I couldn't even get the raw. I couldn't even get the raw stems of the interviews well enough that I could even put it in my reel. There was fucking music over the package, but I had like 3 or 4 people send me screenshots like people hadn't seen in years, right? From like summer camp and stuff on Facebook, being like, "Hey, I just saw this on my TV today. How cool is this?" And I'm like,
I got like
I got like $200, and I was like sweating my balls off, right? Like,
oh yeah, dude. I mean, for my high school reunion, I didn't get to go because I was working for Netflix on this new show that I was the host of. That day did not go very well for me, in the sense of like it was just a rough day. And then the show just never, it never made it to pilot. So it was like I got paid great, and I didn't go to my high school reunion because I was working for Netflix, and people were like, "Holy shit, that's amazing!" But then, like, for me, I'm like, man, the show never aired. I got paid like $500, which was cool, but like, damn.
Yeah, it's really funny how that stuff works. It's always the ones where you feel like you're actually connecting to people. Like there's like tangible people who care. Like that's why I think why the action stuff has been so meaningful, probably.
Yeah, the action and the Schmodown stuff. Those live events, that crowd there. Houston, another reason, because that's like a Schmodown that also kind of birthed the Army, the real Army. That those groups of people really make you feel very special, like real celebrities.
Yeah, I can only dream. But so guys, we've only got Drew for a couple more minutes here. I do remind everybody here who's watching or listening to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already hit it. Give a thumbs up, and remember, for brand new channels like this one, leaving a comment is everything. Comments are like mean the world. So just leave a comment about one of Drew's stories or whatever you want. I'm using a camera that doesn't make me look pale anymore. Comment on that.
Yeah, you look great. Man.
Please do all those things if you can. It would mean a lot to me as we continue to build this channel. Tomorrow, there's a big 5 p.m. Stream for my birthday, which you guys, that's going to be Saturday, June 6th. I'm announcing a big thing, so go tune in. You'll probably see Drew's face here as well.
Getting old, man. Getting old.
Getting real old, but I'm excited about that. So thank you to everybody for watching, and we're going to hang with Drew for just a couple more minutes here. But please don't forget to hit that subscribe button. All right, so this is a question I ended my last interview with, and I think this is it's another fun one to spring on you here. Because I liked it on the last one. What is the most important thing you own?
Do I own my dog?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I guess that's an animal rights issue.
Human animal rights issue. I feel like it's probably my dog then. Is that a cop-out answer though?
Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe. Okay, really so sure. if we're going for like an inanimate object, probably my computer. Honestly, at this point, so much of our life, especially because of COVID, and now what else is going on in the world, is like so much of our communicating with our community and each other and interacting with just the world is just right here. And also for my job, I need this. So honestly, at this point, it feels like my computer, as weird as that is to say, because I probably would have said that like 17 years ago as well. I'm like, yeah, my computer because I'm a gamer. But now it's because of work. If not, then my dog. I feel like, what was their answer? Can I ask that?
The last one, so Chloe answered, she said
she's like, it's an heirloom from my grandmother. Okay, thank God.
That her mom gave her that was from like a tour. And then she also said that her dad he has 2 Oscars. He won an Oscar for the visual effects in Star Wars and also a visual effects on Spider-Man 2. And that someday she'll probably own that Oscar. And that would be pretty cool.
I'm glad you told me afterwards, because I feel like I'd be like, I don't want to answer. I got nothing.
Yeah, I was like, oh, your dad won an Oscar for Star Wars, huh? I think that's a unique answer. That's pretty cool.
It's like an Oscar
I've ever heard in my life.
Wow. Yeah, I've told you this. I held the Oscar for the best director, William Wyler's, for Ben-Hur.
Yeah.
And I gotta tell you, man, when I held that thing, it felt crazy. Felt like Thor holding his hammer.
Right.
It was like, yeah, it was weird. It was weird. Obviously, I was very young, but there was something about holding that and like what I want to do in my life. You never think you're gonna hold one, or like I never thought I would until the day that hopefully I win one, if that ever is gonna happen. But yeah, holding an Oscar was pretty cool for me. But I don't own it. It was just someone else's I touched once.
Would you ever, if you never win one, will you ever just try to buy one just so you can have that dream accomplished? You own an Oscar?
No, man. That's like calling into Cameo and having like a celebrity that you love, like wish you happy birthday. Thanks, Ice Cube. Like, I can't do that. I need to either wish me a happy birthday or they just don't know I exist, and I gotta let it go.
I'm gonna figure out a way to deep fake Fat Andrew from 2014, and I'm gonna like start sending you messages someday using like the celebrity app, but just with your face. I'm gonna find a way to do it.
Fat Andrew is one of my favorite things in my life because whenever I look at that picture of that guy, I'm like, man, that's another. You talk about the other things like the chips on your shoulder, things that have happened along the way. That fat guy that I became a couple times in my life, and this is no slight on people that are heavier. It was just me and the way that I gained weight because of how unhappy I was.
Yeah,
that dude helped inspire me to where I am to be now. I'm not in the greatest shape of my life, but like I at least don't do what I did then, you know?
I mean, you didn't gain weight because you were eating delicious cakes and drinking a little too much wine for dinner and relaxing on a beach. You were like pounding calories of sugar. So
yeah,
I think it's fair. I think it's fair to. I know all about that one, man.
Yeah, it's a good one.
It's a good one. Guys, I'm going to thank Andrew here for coming by, doing an episode of Great Conversation. I hope you guys learned something you didn't know about him today. As you guys know, you can check out Action Industries, our channel we do together, youtube.com/Action Industries, and subscribe there. We've got great content coming out all through this crazy pandemic and all through the crazy chaos that is happening outside of our front doors right now. If you guys want to follow Andrew, where can they find you, Drew?
You guys can just find me at Andrew Ghai on Twitter. That's the best place. Otherwise, Action Industries is another really good place to find me. You know, and I'm excited to be on your channel. I'm excited for what you're doing here. But CRL broadcasts, right? If you guys like Clash Royale, do that every Saturday and Sunday at 10 a.m. on the West Coast, 1 p.m. on the East Coast. You can just subscribe on YouTube, youtube.com, and then go to esports or Clash Royale. It's pretty easy to find. That's something I'm doing for the next few weeks. But otherwise, probably just in this apartment, man.
Cool, man. Rock and roll.
Thanks for having me on, dude. Did you learn anything that you didn't know about me before? I feel like that's pretty tough.
I think so. I think I probably maybe some of that stuff I had heard before in the past, but I feel like I got you talking, opening up, so that was fun.
Yeah. I hope I did okay for you, man.
I think you did a good job. I think that people are going to enjoy this. Guys, leave your comments below. Let us know how we did. And if you think we did a bad job, be sure to let us know that also, because comments are comments.
Yes, they are.
Yeah. All right, guys. We'll see you on the next one.
Bye.